With Plan B emergency contraception, we're in control of our future. It's backup birth control you take after unprotected sex that helps prevent pregnancy before it starts. It works by temporarily delaying ovulation, and it won't impact your future fertility. Plan B is available in all 50 U.S. states at all major retailers near you, with no ID, prescription, or age requirement needed. Together, we've got this. Follow Plan B on Insta at Plan B One Step to learn more. Use as directed.
Hey, Mama. Thanks for making all my favorite recipes.
Hi, Ma. Thanks for your unfiltered advice.
Hi, Mom. Thanks for always being by the phone.
Hey, Mom. Happy Mother's Day.
When you ship UPS Air at the UPS Store, your items arrive on time or your money back. Guaranteed at no extra cost. Exclusively at the UPS Store U.S. retail locations. Visit theupsstore.com/airshipping for full details. Terms and conditions apply. Send your Mother's Day gifts at the UPS Store and we'll get your gratitude there on time.
Horror can be described as a lot of things. Haunting, gross, shocking, and more. But there's another adjective I'd use, though admittedly, only in the rarest of cases. Beautiful. I usually reserve it for movies and stories that move me emotionally. Films like The Sixth Sense, The Others, and Train to Busan are a few that come to mind. And one of my favorite horror novellas of all time, Nothing But Blackened Teeth by Cassandra Khaw, is a beautifully written and horrifying story. Today's episode features a short story that, to me, fits the category of beautiful horror. The House That Waits, written by Eris, is an ethereal and haunting read that lingers like a dull ache. As you know, I love a good haunted house story, but this one is about more than ghosts and spirits inhabiting a location. It's the type of story that settles deep in your bones, where fear is more an internal reality than an external experience. And I'm excited to narrate it for you. So sit back, turn down the lights, pull up the covers, turn up the volume, and pay close attention as I narrate The House That Waits, written by Eris. I'm Will, and you're listening to Midnight Horror Stories. The House That Waits, written by Eris. The house stood in the middle of the cemetery. An odd place, it seems, to build a home to live. But it stood there before the dead rested in the grounds, and it will stay there long after their bones decompose. It felt like a dollhouse, if dollhouses were built for broken little girls who relish in the darkness of life. For this reason, it called to me. Its somber gray walls and intricate brickwork felt like home whenever I wandered through the graves to feed the deer and crows. So when I noticed the property went up for sale, I knew it had to be mine. It was the final days of winter when I moved in. The snow all but melted, with blooms of hellebores and crocuses popping up from the greens of the grass that started to peek out. The days were bathed in sunlight. They felt like a lingering exhale rather than time passing. A time to live in that matched my mood. The property was beautiful, Stygian, yet ethereal. A small translucent stream trickled around it, and the warbling notes of robins filled the air. A life in dreamlike silence. A place to stretch out and breathe without the weight of the world pressing down on me. The weight of loss. The weight of my life. The house hummed with the birds. A deep, resonating sound that rumbled as I moved around its heavy oak floors. The walls were muted lilacs, and I spent hours wandering around the halls, trailing my fingers over the wood trims, getting to know its spaces while I sang its songs of sweet sorrows, the old timber and stone creaking as I learned where each door led, what each window looked out to, and how the shadows danced along the wall with the sun as it moved throughout the day. In the quiet of the morning, after my ritual of feeding the deer, I would pour myself a cup of coffee, French pressed with piping hot water, not boiled, and black as the aged tombstones that have stood here for decades, too old and without love from any ancestors to clean them. I would sit at my grandfather's desk to take in the view of the sanctuary. There was a serene, morbid calm to being surrounded by both death and life. Bones lived deep under the earth to give life back to it, creating a world of lush grass, wildflowers, and tall evergreen trees that kissed the sky and gave home to the beautiful ravens and crows that lived on these grounds. I kept a journal of this life, its pages filled with fragments of stories of the people who once lived before their bodies graced the earth. The words came easily in the early morning. Memories that weren't mine swirled in my mind, visions of them lurking in the depths of this home. It fed these stories, the murmur of this old house, and sometimes I felt like I could hear the words being whispered into my ear, coming from voices deep inside of here, urging me to tell their tales. My mind would pulse from the intensity of it, the words that melted out of my pen. No choice but to step away and retrace my steps around the walls, seeing if I could find my way with my eyes closed, remember my voice in the blur of each passing day, only to return to the old desk in the evenings, the golden hour gaze of the afternoon sun looming shadows up the wall. I wrote then too, but more furiously, the words grew darker, with ire and sadness, and I could no longer tell where my mind began and the voices ended. The morning rushed up at me, the spring sun glaring through the window, a kind of quiet change that rattled me just slightly, but not enough to realize the dreamlike stillness had now grown eerie, and the voices that whispered in my ear were the only ones I heard. The sun, usually gentle and warm on my face as I brewed my morning coffee, was a confrontational stranger, its light no longer a soft haze, but a puncture to my eyes. But when I looked outside to take it all in, there was nothing. No soft outline of the flowers that burst through the ground. No murmuration of crows doing aerial tricks in the sky, dancing with each other while tossing their sticks and swooping around in perfect formation. The air was still, breathless, just a storm of clouds that seemed to touch the earth. A gray encompassing is all I could see, as if the world outside simply disappeared. A strange foggy morning, I whispered to myself, unsettled but determined to coo at the shadows to make them nothing more than a simple change in weather. I picked up my pen to write down the stories that floated in my head, but they too went silent. The world went silent. Not even the scratch of the pen against the paper made a sound. I pushed away from the desk, my feet pressed against the grain of the wood floor as I walked to the kitchen to make another coffee, confident I was just exhausted, maybe even growing ill. My steps were hesitant. The floor no longer felt like the one I had been treading on throughout this spring. The wood felt unfamiliar, sharp against my feet. It felt as if it were slicing my heels. But when I looked, they were smooth, untouched. When I got to the kitchen, it felt so strange, so foreign to my eyes, and that I could not recognize anything at all. The angles were too sharp. The stone of the counter looked brittle, the wood stove cracking. The shadows did not dance. There was no warmth of the smell of roasted coffee beans. I rubbed my eyes to look again, but it was still wrong. And then I saw it, a door beside the back door, its color a deep burnt orange with a black doorknob. It stood taller than the other door, built together by panels of wood that looked forged by old rusty nails. I moved towards it, my pulse throbbing in my hands, my heart palpitating so hard against my chest that my body temperature rose. I opened it. A narrow stairwell went into darkness. A quiet pull beneath the ground that beckoned me, the whispers of the graves here, flooding my mind all at once. I desperately wanted to look away, but my eyes were fixated on the black. I swallowed hard to take a step down, my fingers on the frame of the door to still myself. But the walls, they were dirt. I felt my nails seep into them, the cold wet of earth, the stairs creaking below my feet as the walls crumbled under my fingers. With each step, the stairwell grew more narrow, until there were no more steps to take, just sunken earth. It tried to bury me. The grime and mud pulled me down, entangling itself around my ankles, wrenching my body into it. I screamed. Gravel slipped my skin as I held onto the stairs, pulling myself out of the loam, scrambling up each step. They cracked below my feet, the wood splintering and slicing me open until I reached the top of the stairs, where I slammed the door hard and retreated against the countertop, which had suddenly set back in its place. The kitchen was bright. The smell of coffee lingered through the air, and the orange door was gone, as if it never existed at all. My coffee tasted off this morning, burnt and flawed, a reflection of the words that kept pouring out of my mind. They come out of me with ease, like cascading rain dropping out of the sky. But when I turn pages back to revisit the stories and gather my thoughts to type them out, they're incomprehensible. The letters faded, as if this journal were near hundreds of years old. My handwriting, usually sharp and bold, grew more erratic, letters stretching impossibly long, as if my thoughts trailed away mid-sentence. It was like reading a dream. It made sense while it was happening, but to think about, to look back, indecipherable distorted versions of the voices in my head. I became lost in this, trying to understand the disconnect, angry about the burnt coffee. I had a deadline due for this novel, but there was nothing here, just fragments of sentences strung together by an exhausted woman. I tore the pages out, crumbled them up, and threw them in the waste bin below the desk. I had to call my agent to say I needed more time. Lord, pray she will not have my neck. I stood up rashly, knocking the chair onto the floor, holding the journal in my hands. I wanted to bin it too, pretend it never existed, leave and go buy myself a new one, get away from this house. But I only sighed and put it in the drawer, too afraid to admit that something was not right here. I need to get some fresh air. I spoke to nobody, picking the chair up and sliding it back into the desk. I walked to the door, dizzy with the incomplete thoughts and scattered letters of the pages. They taunted my inability and mocked the progress I thought I had been making. I grabbed my keys and made my way to the front door, feeling small inside this house. The door creaked as I opened it. It sounded like a cry, a whimper to pull me back, but I ignored it. I needed to get out of here. But the second I stepped outside, I was back in the house, standing in my bedroom, just outside my closet door. Dumbstruck, my breath hitched. I blinked and looked around my room. What the fuck? I was breathless in my speech. I turned around to see the closet door open, my clothes hung up neatly, the chain from the light dangling from movement. Flustered, I shut the door and turned away from it, but glanced back when I heard the whine of hinges as the door opened back up. Panic overtook me. I ran to the window to open it, but was taken aback by what I saw outside. The sunshine had completely dissipated. Outside were only swirls of deep indigos and rich plums, contorting around each other like vapors of mist. They mingled with the shimmering twinkle of fireflies in the sky. They seemed to blink in and out of existence. I pushed upwards on the window to escape into the night, but it wouldn't budge. I threw my fists against the glass, only for it to ripple under them, as if it were made of water that I could not penetrate. A seal between the house and the outside. My eyes started burning. My skin flushed. I couldn't breathe. Disoriented, my mind spun. the voices toppling over one another, whispering too many secrets at once. This is just a dream. This is just a dream. This is just a dream. I muttered to myself in a frenzy, stumbling backward toward the bed, my legs tangling as I fell onto it in a disoriented heap. I sat there, stunned, staring towards the closet door as I watched it open wider, letting veils of darkness slip out. Each layer darker than the next, it suffocated my surroundings until my vision was completely gone. The quiet was deafening. I opened my mouth to scream, but no sound came out. The silence swallowed me, and I lay there, collapsed, shouting at myself from the inside to wake up. I opened my eyes to my face cradled in my arms, nestled on the old desk. My head thudded, a headache that felt like something was knocking inside my skull. My hair was in shambles, the curls twisted into each other, knotted and frayed. My cup knocked over, coffee spilled all over the wood and dripping onto the floor. A sweet, sorrowful song of mourning doves lilted from outside. They sat on the windowsill, crooning at me, their chest rising with each hypnotic lull. A haunting lullaby better suited for night. But the sun was shining in from outside, the sky a perfect cerulean without a single cloud in sight. I breathed in a sigh of relief. I must have fallen asleep here last night, writing out thoughts and spinning stories. It was a dream, a nightmare really, but all in my head after all. I opened my notebook up to see the writing. Bold and intricate cursive flooded the pages, each word containing a secret the house had seemingly told me since I moved in here. Exhausted, sore, and yawning, I pulled myself off the desk, notebook in hand, to go to the kitchen and brew myself a fresh cup of coffee. I had half expected to see an orange door looming over me when I walked into the room, but it was exactly what it was, a perfectly quaint kitchen in a grand home. It had everything I needed within its four walls, namely just the delicious Robusta coffee that graced my French press multiple times a day. Heated, stirred, steeped for 4 minutes, pressed, and now I was sipping on earthy notes, wandering around my home. The morning sun kissed my skin as I mused over the words in the journal, my nose in it like a good book as I turned the pages as quickly as I turned the corners of each corridor, my feet able to find the path without my eyes leading the way. I tried to piece together how the stories would unfold, how I would tell them, each tale of darkness from a home in a graveyard. I could market it as based on true events. It was semi-true after all. I do live in a house built in the middle of the cemetery, but there's no way these reveries were the actual accounts of departed souls from these grounds. But still, I cannot deny how flushed with inspiration my mind has been since I moved in. It's drowning in the tales of the dead, and drowning out the tale of my life. I flipped to a page about a room in the East Hall. It described a stairwell I've never seen before, one that twisted up to the attic. I found myself making my way there, but I've wandered these halls every day, and I've never seen a stairwell. So surely these words must be my imagination, just stories I conjured up from the isolation of this old place, hauntings that exist only in my mind, unremitting and puzzling. I was beginning to get frustrated as I wandered around the home. My coffee was now cold, but the kitchen was so far away. I'd set it on a ledge, but I'd forget about the cup for weeks. It would simply become a part of this house, lost in all the nooks and crannies. It feels as though I exist in a maze, a labyrinth concealed in a graveyard. There are so many doors that stand in the halls, doors to tiny closets, rooms, strange small pockets of the house that make me wonder why they were built in the first place. Each time I see one, it feels as if it were for the first time. They disappear in my wake and reappear in other places. Or perhaps there are just too many of them that I forget they exist, or imagine they were there when they never were. I remember the touch of the wood frames as my fingers grazed against them, turning the doorknobs and peeking inside each one, nearly expecting to be greeted by a library, a fully furnished room, a closet full of heirlooms. But they're always empty. This house far too big for me to fill. Today, however, in this fleeting time after the nightmare, as I walk, I move away from the doors. Something is chilling and discordant in their appearance. They frighten me, disorient me, enough for me to turn around and head back to the west side of the house, to my living room, the place where my thoughts safely reside, a room that hugs me and holds me. Except every corner I take seems to loop back to this hallway. It stretches out before me, seemingly never ending, the muted lilacs on the walls blending in with the frames of the doors, like they were paintings. It looks so dark ahead of me, light pouring in from the stained glass windows that line the walls, but shadows ahead, encroaching into my space. It flickered. It looked like it was distorting in and out of reality. I went to turn around, but there was only a single glass window pane, and I was met with the blackness of the darkest hour. No light, no twinkling fireflies, no swirling indigos, just the void, the impenetrable dark, total obscurity, oblivion. I pulled on the hinges. They were stuck, corroded with rust. I pushed on the window, heaved on it, tried to wrench it open, my arms hurting from the force I put towards it. It did not budge. It remained perfectly intact as it gave me more visions of nothing. I shuddered. I wanted to scream, but only air came out. My body trembled in fear that my mind was once again placing me in terror. I ran, sprinted down the hallway. It wavered, endless. There was no way to turn back. The world behind me shrank, collapsing, shrouded in darkness. Flickering lights burned out like smoldering embers. I was left in the chasm of the night. I went to grab the doors, but the handles were only an illusion. Darkness enclosed me, cruel and unyielding, suffocating me. I tried to find light, my hands scrambling against the walls, searching for something familiar, anything to tell me where I was. I pounded against them, yet no sound came out. I tried to scream again, but only emptiness filled the air. This was not my home. This was not my home. This was not my home. The air was dense. It scraped against my lungs as I tried to breathe it in. The silence was suffocating, inescapable. It seeped through my pores, leaving the world around me vacant. Blinded by the darkness, I moved forward, my hands against the wall, feeling the texture of the paint as I walked down the endless hallway, trying to find a way to leave. I could touch my hands against both walls. They tapered in on me, smothering me with each step I took. I had lost all track of time, of how long I had been walking. My legs knotted, seizing with each step I took forward. There was no way out. There wasn't even the whisper of the voices in the house that lurked in my mind before. Only air that looked like it was drenched in ick, thick and foreboding. Please, something help me, I tried to say, my mouth only making the shape of the words. My body felt heavy, like I was dragging it through the halls. I so desperately wanted to fall, crawl across the floor on my hands and knees, but also to just lie there, let my skin bleed into the floor and allow the house to take me. My eyelids fluttered. Breaths grew shorter. I started to cower and descend my body into the floor, to allow myself to be a drink to nourish this home, give it back what it gave to me. I lay there, staring out into the darkness, trying to see shapes in the expanse, breathing in the thick air, when my eyes formed a shape. Barely perceptible, in outline, I lie there longer, gazing at the shape, trying to decide if it was real or if my mind was descending into despair. And then, a lost, optimistic grain of hope that this was not the end for me. I pulled my body forward, arms reaching out to cling to the hardwood beneath my fingernails. I dragged my body ahead, using the walls as leverage. I pulled myself up, slogging towards the shape. A tower, a peak of color. Orange. The door. No. I moved towards it. It loomed over me, folding its wood around me, enveloping me. There was nothing left. No walls, no floor. I was completely concealed by its orange, a blanket of the void. The door creaked open, and light poured in. It seared into my eyes, blinding me from the darkness. A stairwell ascended in front of me. It felt infinite, but it was a way out that beckoned me beyond my control. There was no floor in front of the stairwell, just an open, yawning hole that looked like it would swallow me if I misstepped. The air was diluted, my lungs expanded. I stepped. I turned around. The orange door was gone. There was only a vast sea of the night sky. Wisps of vibrant smoke intertwining with luminous shots of prisms, and the steps that stood before me. It was an ascension. It was steep, reaching high above what my eyes could perceive. I looked behind me and watched the world collapse into a void, wrapped in shimmering obsidian, a universe without stars lying ready to catch my body if I were to slip. My hand traced along the banister, alive in its velvet touch, the wood etched into celestial carvings, planets, moons, and pillars. In the distance, glimpses of small rooms echoed. They flickered in and out of existence, near fading entirely as I grew closer to them. They were dense, small spaces with balconies that reached out over the chasm, each one a lingering memory of something I knew. I climbed. The stairs creaked under each step. The wood splintered, cracked as if the weight of my feet were far too much for its brittle bones. I looked down to see them turn to ash as my foot lifted off them, each ember dissipating below me, the fragments scattering around, flickering, turning into soft specks of light that bounced off each other until they disappeared completely. I turned my attention to the rooms. They were like ghosts, fluttering in and out of this realm. Each one is a memory of the house I was in. The kitchen was to my side, the walls crooked, the island jagged. The coffee bar was toppled over, with beans endlessly spilling off the counter into the abyss. Glass window panes drifted just outside them, the room broken apart, then brought back together in pieces. I pushed up more stairs. They grew softer with each step, the dust of the ashes fleeting up from under my feet. My grandfather's desk floated by me, the notebook back on it, pages flipping back and forth, the words wafting off of them. They swelled, scratching in the air like pen on paper. I tried to reach for it, but it wavered. A mirage. More ghosts of the things in the home I lived in. The stairwell had begun to shrink, the banister morphing from the velvet wood to brambles that held my hands and guided me. It grew more ragged, the wood splintering to cinder before I could even touch them. Each step was finite. I held onto the tendrils to pull myself upwards, my feet only touching pieces of debris that brushed the air below me. Each step, ash. Each ash, burning embers. Light moved around me. I inhaled it and breathed out the wildflowers that graced the cemetery the house stood on. They lingered around me, morphing into the trees, mourning doves singing their mournful tunes. Then gone, scattered like fractals in the air. Tears started to roll down my cheeks, nestling softly on my lips so I could taste the salt of them. I could not remember why I was climbing. My memory slipping as all I could see were pieces of the house fading. Lilac walls, so vibrant when I moved in. It was wallpaper adorned with beautiful flowers. But as the days went by, they faded. I see that now, and in front of me. Not lilac at all, but gray. The color bleeding off it, the walls near translucent. The brambles start to illuminate. They've become veins of light, tendrils coiled around my arms, my body. They're moving me, the steps all but gone. All there is now is light, extraordinary colors my mind cannot fathom, and clouds, colossal towers of them, unlike anything I've seen on Earth. They sparkled, the grays like silvers with the brilliance of only dead stars. I moved through them, effortlessly, my body being cradled by the luminescence. I was being guided upwards, the world below me nothing but infinite cosmos, specks of stardust that have always existed, and always will. They pulsated in me, and I knew I was them, of them, and it all made sense. I was the house, the cemetery, the bones within the graves that lined the property, the wildflowers, robins, and mourning dove that sang me their sorrowful songs. I was the sun that shone through the windows, the warmth that kissed my cheeks, and the darkness that lured me underground. It was all of me, and I was all of it. There was no end. There was no darkness, no light. It all but unraveled from my skin. There was no abyss, no chasm of infinite emptiness, only a precipice, not of brick or hardwood floors, not endless stairs, but sheer infinity, a bend in space, in time, a place to exist while the universe unraveled, and it did, and I did with it. What did you think of The House That Waits? Comment on Spotify, and let's talk about it. A special thank you to author Eris for allowing me to narrate her terrific and haunting horror story. Be sure to follow her on social media at erisgray.eats.ghosts on Threads and Instagram. And you can follow her work on fadetograyreviews.com. That's gray with an E. And on Patreon at patreon.com/Eris Gray Writes. Of course, you can follow Midnight Horror Stories wherever you stream pods and on YouTube. And don't forget to leave a 5-star review. I'm Will, and thanks for listening to Midnight Horror Stories. See you next episode.
Starting a business can seem like a daunting task, unless you have a partner like Shopify. They have the tools you need to start and grow your business. From designing a website to marketing to selling and beyond, Shopify can help with everything you need. There's a reason millions of companies like Mattel, Heinz, and Allbirds continue to trust and use them. With Shopify on your side, turn your big business idea into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.